this is probably, we've been referencing this for the last 2 days. This is the commerce media discussion. Now, some of you will be going, what the hell are you talking about, Kieran, commerce media? So I'll just set the stage for this. There's a couple of things which are interesting. Amazon, for one, $9.5 billion business per quarter by just putting a simple ad on their page, many ads, right? There's a whole ecosystem building up around this. And there's a whole optimization opportunity. And it's incredible that ad tech seems to have ignored this for so many years. And now it's probably the biggest opportunity of the next 10 years. And agencies are setting up their own sort of specialist solutions internally to do a lot of this. We've got ad tech who's doing the infrastructure. We've got a whole wave of innovation coming. So I'm very excited about this panel. So I want to do just a quick intro from all of you, because probably a lot of people don't know you. So I'll start with you, Ruth.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Ruth Zorer. I'm Global Chief Client Success Officer for Wonderman Thompson Commerce.
I'm Cassie. I'm Global Head of Commerce at Publicist Commerce.
I'm Babs Kane, and I head up Publisher Development at Pubmatic for EMEA.
I'm Stefan Swartberg. I'm the founder of Kavai.
Thank you all. Let's start with the agency point of view first and foremost, right? Let's talk about how your customers, your clients are approaching this, because it's not all about sticking ads on a website, as we said before. It's an incredible ecosystem that's building up. So we're talking about Amazon, Target, Instacart, all of these emerging solutions and channels that are making themselves available in terms of sort of optimization of ads. But Ruth, you talked about this being not so easy. There's a lot more to it. So just give people an idea of the complexity around it.
Sure. Well, I think it's important to highlight that the point of view that we have as Wonderman Thompson is slightly different from a media agency, because our role has been predominantly in building those platforms, right? So delivering sales for clients is our heritage. When you start looking at the role that media plays in sales delivery, then it's not just about placing the ad, it's about ensuring that you have the right content. It's about making sure that that's running in synergy with the merchandising and trading promotions, and making sure that everything is actually delivering to that end result, which is sales. I think the biggest transition for me personally, moving from media agency to the commerce build and run organization, has been that holistic approach, that bottom-up planning, which is not often the way in which media agencies tend to approach commerce media. So it's been fascinating to see it from more of the operational side of things as well. And I'd love to hear Cassie's point of view, because obviously you do it from a different angle.
Yes, well, Publicist Commerce is not a media agency, so we can start with that. They are slightly different. But I would say the people that we're working with are mostly manufacturer brands who have legacy organizations to sell their products to retailers. So they're very good at selling it to the retailers, but what they're having to reorganize around now is selling their products to consumers. And whether that be content, advertising, operations, supply chain, it's a whole new world that traditional structures aren't built for, and they have to really restructure to be able to capture that opportunity.
So it's not a case of just we'll set up put a bunch of ads via DSP. There's a whole other layer that you have to understand, which is supply chain optimization, physical sales, channel conflict, because if you have 100 marketplaces that you're buying across, then channel conflict becomes an issue, because if you're doing more ads here, then you've got potentially taking money out of the pot elsewhere.
Yeah. I mean, I'll take the point that Cassie has just raised. A lot of the trade marketing budgets, what you're seeing is they're starting to be digitized, right? So a lot of what you used to see in the physical retail space, obviously now you need to think about what's that articulation in the digital space through some of this advertising, some of the promotional activity, and actually the digital representation of your products on marketplaces, on e-retail, and other touch points. And I think it is that transition which for me has been incredibly interesting, because you're seeing that convergence of the communications organization and of the commerce or sales organization, and that's where the line is quite blurry today, and where there's, dare I say, a bit of infighting in many organizations as to who owns what budget. Generally, what we tend to see, and again, partly because of the heritage that we have, is that the sales organization is succeeding at grabbing some of those budgets to then deliver the end sales. And part of that has to do with some of the operational elements that you and I talked about, right? So how do I make sure that whatever sales are being delivered through new digital channels, whether that's on Amazon or whether that's at Walmart Digital or a Roundel, are incremental to the sales that I'm delivering through bricks and mortar. And the operational data becomes incredibly important in helping answer those questions. So it's not just about the customers, but it's also about the product data. Is it in stock? Are we going to have additional operational costs by not shifting products at the right time? And so the complexity and the data feeds that you take into account is much greater than when you're looking at it just from a media and advertising perspective.
So we'll come back to that shift in budget, but I want to come to the two guys. How did AdTech miss this opportunity, right? We spent 2 days talking about CTV, and yet there's a multi-billion opportunity that we've completely ignored for nearly fucking 10 years. It's hilarious that, Hook Logic, who I've always thought was a fantastic company, bought by Criteo and left on the bloody shelf for like 2 years, gathering dust. Why is it only now that AdTech is seeing this? So we'll start with you, Babs, and then we'll go to Stefan.
So I guess it's a fair point to say that AdTech has been slow to come to this. I don't think that is necessarily through a lack of or an unwillingness to recognize this or an unwillingness to support brands in this way. I think there have been a number of challenges, and I think it is for me, it's most encouraging to see that we are moving into this space, to see the way that, the conversations that we're having today with different retailers, the way that they are looking at this as an opportunity for their businesses, and they're looking at partners, and they are, for them, a lot of these, outside of the Amazons and the Walmarts of the world, it's incredibly new. So this is a world of opportunity for them, and they're looking for partners. And we at Pubmatic, we're trying to service some of that need. But yeah, I think it's better late than never, I guess, is the easiest way to come back to.
And Kavai, if people don't know who Kavai is, it's a conversation media creative platform.
Creative commerce platform.
Exactly,
now.
creative commerce platform. But incredibly interesting in the sense that this is the next wave of innovation in the space, right? Thinking about what you guys are doing and the sort of environment that intent-based environment that AdTech could succeed in.
I think commerce media or e-commerce in general, it's the biggest thing that's happening since programmatic in 2010, 11. And I think for brands, agencies, ad tech vendors, it's the biggest opportunity in years. So what you get with commerce is obviously as a business, you want to do three things. You want to sell your goods, you want to retain that customer, and you want to sell more. And with e-commerce and e-commerce capabilities, you're actually able to do so in an advertising perspective as well. Because now we're seeing the emergence of these super apps. So you had PayPal early 2000, and now we're seeing in separate regions like super apps popping up in the Nordics, Germany, Italy, and so on. And what that effectively does is it enables for payments, amazing user experience and simplicity. And if you can merge that with advertising and create scale, that's an amazing opportunity to actually also operate accurate data, because we've been working with third-party cookies, like inaccurate data for 20 years, and we've been slapping grade A+ on that data, but e-commerce actually is transactional, accurate data, not all the old shit we've been trading on.
But isn't it incredible that this space is just like in the current environment where cookies and IDs and even media optimization is becoming privacy first, this is a really amazing ecosystem to be involved in, because one, we don't mind seeing ads, right? Like if you're buying stuff on various commerce sites, it doesn't matter if it's Carrefour or Amazon or whatever marketplace you're on, you don't mind seeing ads, right? You actually have programs that I don't mind seeing this ad. This ad has relevance to me because I want to buy shit right now, here and now. So this is a great thing for marketers, and because it's all about that intent-based stuff, and also then the attribution piece, Cassie. That's the piece that I like about it, is that it's transactional, right? There's addressability, but we don't have to hack privacy to do it.
Yeah, I think there's a risk in that short-term sales focus as well. We're going to see a swing of people focusing on brand building and reach and going and funding a lot of commerce media in the next couple of years because it is blowing up. And I think there's a risk of going too far in one direction and not having that balance. And you need the right tech.
Guys, these guys here.
Right tech and the right experience on retail sites to be able to do this. And not only do those legacy structures exist at brands, they exist in retailers. Like, they're not willing to give up that 100K that they get for a brand store that nobody visits because it's not transparent. But as soon as you open up a shelf to a CPC, it might not be as much as they were getting before, and that scares them.
I mean, for me, what's super exciting is that connection of online to offline, right? This is where we've had some really interesting results with clients, where we're able to bring some of that in-store bricks and mortar data connected with the online world, and then use that to power some of that end-to-end experience that Cassie's talking about. I do believe it's not a matter of brand marketing and commerce marketing or trade marketing, which historically is how organizations have been organized, right? When you look at the large FMCG players, even within consumer health, there's very distinctive teams dealing with one side and the other. What we're starting to see more and more, and our research supports that, is that it's what we call compressed commerce. So that about 80% of consumers want to have that space between inspiration and purchase shortened. And I think that's where the big opportunity, particularly from a creative point of view, comes in. So having that availability, which historically, we've referred to as physical availability, articulated in the digital space as well, and making sure that products are never further than one click away to purchase. That's what, for me, I think becomes very, very exciting.
I'm encouraged by the interesting activation of some of these marketplaces. You were saying at the break there, Stefan, about Target going from like 0 to 800 million in literally a couple of months by turning on some ads. We were talking about as well Instacart basically make no money delivering groceries. It's just basically break even, and they make $1.5 billion from ads on the actual site. And they've just basically robbed half of Amazon's ad team to come and run it. But that activation of these environments is really interesting. I mean, how do you see that sort of progressing? Will we see, we've seen Carrefour in France doing a lot of stuff around this now, but do you see like other, like to Cassie's point, like brands or big marketplaces or big supermarkets trying to preserve their budgets by pushing this money online?
Yeah. I think you touched branding, and I think that's an important factor here in with retail media or commerce as well, because Amazon, their site looks like dog shit, but they have superior user experience. And I think this is the thing where e-commerce kind of plays into part, because building a brand online is usually been show a funny picture, a nice video, blah, 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 and hope you get some...
Too expensive and
yeah,
not sustainable, you wouldn't last.
Extremely expensive. But with commerce and commerce technology enables for the same user experience Amazon brings to the consumer. People love Amazon, but it looks like shit. Because it has a really nice user experience. And if you can start building technology that enables that same click to pay, click to cart, that simplicity, and then it's suddenly in your mailbox, you're starting to really build a superior user experience, which effectively builds a strong brand. And then naturally with like retailers or etc., they want to sell their ad slots as well, because they're selling more goods on their own site. It's becoming an online retailer. Then okay, let's enable for some brands to promote some certain offers, and then that's strong intent. You want to buy that. And retail media, I kind of compare it with when we talked about this before we came up here. If you're selling your house, your car, you go to a classified site. You don't slap that ad on The Guardian, and then it gets sold magically. So brands want that same shit to happen. So Nivea wants to sell aftershave or creams and so on. Then they want to promote that product where it's relevant. And that's not always an article about bad skin or whatever. It's where people actually want to buy stuff.
Babs, we spoke about this week as well. A lot of your peers are running after the CTV shiny stuff. You're kind of like doubling down on it is very shiny, yeah, you're right. But you've kind of like played a big play on the commerce media space. But I want to talk about some of the clients you're working with. Like, how are they thinking about this, and how are they integrating your technology into because it feels to me that there's going to be more marketplaces. There's going to be more opportunity to optimize the sales process. But I'm just curious how you're approaching this, because obviously being traditional ad tech, and then the other way is that the retailers are coming your way. And so how do we actually make these ads viable on a data-driven way?
So I think a couple of things. One, conversations like this are really encouraging, because I think there's different arms of the spectrum that are represented here. So the one thing that I think is missing, and that I don't see in a lot of these conversations, are the retailers themselves. That's something we should, as an industry, try and address. And
for the record, we did invite Carrefour, but our friend from Carrefour couldn't make it. It's a French national holiday today, apparently. Baguette Day. Sorry.
But I think, genuinely, talking about the conversations we're having and how we're looking to support brands in this, I think it's, as I said, a lot of these guys it's an early stage development for them. I spent, unfortunately, 2 hours in the car park this morning talking to a retailer sitting in my car. It was joyous. But they are, I think the interesting thing is that a lot of these guys, they realize the opportunity. They see that there is value here. They see what the likes of Amazon are doing, the opportunity that they could also realize with the data that they have, the relationship that they've built up with their users over time. They understand that there is something there that they could really look to take advantage of. But ultimately, they are looking for partnerships. They do not want to be in a position where they are exposing their companies to undue risk. That's always a big piece of this. But also, a lot of these companies have built up a foundation where, because of that trust and that sort of engagement that they've built with their users, that's central to what they do. So ultimately, they do not want to be in a position where they are putting that trust at risk. So, I think it is an education piece for some of this, and that is, as I say, these sort of conversations, getting these brands to understand, that there is a way to do this and do this effectively. But also, it's for people like us at Pubmatic, providing the infrastructure, giving them those partnerships that they can utilize and really kind of accelerate their way into these things.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I wasn't supposed to.
No, please.
I have a question for the agency folks
on
the other side.
You've got to take over.
Yeah, give me the mic. So,
I'm really tired now, so it's fine.
Yeah, sorry, but with commerce, obviously it brings outcomes. And is the CPM dead? Is it getting killed off with all this new technology coming in? It's an interesting topic, because the CPM model is actually quite crap. If you're a CEO for Nivea, you want outcomes, you want sales. They don't like, cost per mil. Like, what the fuck is that? So my question is for the agencies, like, how do you see the pricing model work in this space, and what's the most attractive part for a brand? Because usually we talk about CPC, that's like, okay, that's the dirty stuff, and then we'll do the CPMs for brand building and blah, blah, blah. But with commerce, it's actually with the transactional data, it's quite accurate, so we can actually effectively measure sales.
You're asking, is there a new metric?
What's happening with the CPM? Are we finally like killing it off, or
that's your final question? By the way.
Yeah, I'll shut up.
I would say definitely not. So you're talking about last point of sale, being able to track that last click point of sale and attributing sales back to that. But CPM has been proven, reach in general, which is what CPM is a factor of, is...
sorry, I have a follow-up, but we just finished.
Yeah.
I'll give you this one. Go on.
Anyway, back to online and offline sales.
Yeah.
Your sale wouldn't be tracking offline sales, so reach is still an indicator of offline sales. And I do think that the experience is too varied. Like with shoppable commerce, you've just said you have a creative commerce platform. We're just going to add commerce to everything now. Do we have connected TV commerce?
We need an acronym. So
we'll just call it commerce.
But I think what people confuse retail media with is this commerce experience, and I do still think you need CPM.
So follow up.
Hold on.
Yeah, sorry. Follow up. So, but the CPM, I think it's a really interesting discussion. We can continue afterwards. But
yes,
okay, we talk about CPM.
I'd rather that programmatic wasn't such a
the viewability and all that. But when you have 30 billion ad impressions a day, how the hell do people actually remember? Yeah, we can have pre-warmed up panels with burgers and ice creams and so on. Yeah, I saw that ad. Good, you get the burger.
Everything that you buy, only the time you see it online.
So we actually approach it differently, right?
Yeah.
So I'm fortunate that I have some amazing brains in the game theory part of the family that are helping us answer exactly that question. Yeah, I don't think the question should be, is CPM dead? I think that's, pardon me, a rather boring question. Is more, what should be the approach to measurement in a space where you have the opportunity to connect to sales, but equally you have to build brand in the long term, right? And I think that's where smart ways of dealing with multi-touch attribution, for example, become quite important. And some of the methodologies that we've been able to develop alongside game theory, bringing in the commerce data sets and the, dare I say, more traditional models for marketing effectiveness. When you put those two things together, you start to get some very interesting indicators, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what measurement is. It's an indicator of what is successful. And we're able to answer questions along the lines of, if I increase my spend on television, you know, what is the sales delivery that I get? And where is that being directed to? Is it predominantly Amazon, or is it predominantly through my direct-to-consumer channels? And I think that's where you start getting an understanding of the different levers that we as marketers, working on both building brand long-term and delivering sales short-term, have at our disposal to pull to create value, not only for consumers, but also for the shareholders.
I'll ask the questions now from now on. Thank you, though. That was a good question, and it was one of my questions, so you kind of stole my question. I actually want to ask a question about where this spend is coming from, right? Is this a shift from physical, sort of in-store spending to the digital world? Is it a case of that money is actually going into the digital world because that's where we do most of our purchases now? Because and with COVID and lockdown, we've accelerated that behavior. So where do you think that budget is coming from? Because that's an interesting one, because it's new budget, but who's losing it?
I think it's coming from many places. Retailers are expecting their margin to go up because retail media is an opportunity, and you can't take that all out of your traditional media fund. So it's coming from shopper, it's coming from trade, it's coming from promotions, it's coming from the finance guy who can find an extra 10K to get you some additional shelf space. It's an organization-wide fund that has to come together just to be on the shelf at some of these retailers.
Is that what you're seeing as well?
Yeah, it varies. And I think from client to client, and again, coming back to the way in which companies are organized, it may come from different places. I think what we're starting to see, which is quite interesting, is once that budget is released, then who takes ownership to get the value for that money, right? And that's where I think the more interesting conversations within the client organization are happening today, because it isn't, in many cases at least from what I've seen, the standard media organization. In many cases, it's a separate organization still that is tasked with delivering value for whatever budget is released from wherever, right? And that's interesting.
Babs, I want to go back to the infrastructure question as well. Do you envisage a situation where like DSPs will be integrated into the Publimatic stack or another stack and be able to buy across these different environments, right? Because it is very much native. It's very, very native to these platforms. Amazon has its own buying API. You can imagine they're all going to have walled garden. Do you imagine a situation where you, as an infrastructure there, would be able to kind of like plug in all that demand, and someone like Ruth and Cassie can just basically their teams can go on and buy those ads in those environments?
So, short answer, yes. I think there is a,
Exactly.
I think there is a solution there that is possible. Some of this does need development. There is discussions that would need to put some of this in place. But the short answer to it is yes. I think the way that we look at it is, if we are servicing a need, the need is definitely there. That from the buy side, people wanting to access audiences. We know the cookie's going away, when that eventually happens. Being able to access, incredibly valuable, incredibly accurate audiences in a frame of mind where we know they are ready to transact. The buyers are asking for that. These retailers or these people within the commerce media ecosystem all have that data. They are able to package and make these audiences available to buyers. Having the infrastructure or having a platform to make those trades or transact those buys, it almost makes, it's an inevitability in one sense that there has to be some solution out there just to facilitate this for both sides of the chain.
I think what's interesting as well, and you love this because I know that you're very much against the monopoly in a single space, but I think there's huge fragmentation, right?
I love fragmentation.
I know you like fragmentation because there's
So
arbitrage
more
opportunities.
people will come to our
right?
events.
No, but I think this is the big difference. In this space, of course, you have the Amazons of this world leading, but when you start taking a much more global view, you have marketplaces. I think it's around 42% of total global online sales are happening on marketplaces. And that is not just going entirely to Amazon, right? They have a big piece of the pie there, but when you move into Latin America, for example, a Mercado Libre is quite big. In Europe, players like Zalando are really creating their niche in certain categories. China and the rest of Asia is completely different. We have markets like Indonesia where you have like tens of marketplaces actually delivering value for customers. So that fragmentation is good because it means that there's not a single player that can dominate the
Frad boy.
That's the challenge, and that's the tech opportunity.
That's why
there.
everyone's so excited about this. There's no standard format. There are a million different
It's a shit show. We
resellers
love shit shows. Great.
that you're going to take advantage of. But I think we need standardization. Like, I've been in commerce now for 4 or 5 years, and I'm excited everyone's now like ready to talk about it.
You've been at the party for at least a
I
year.
know, by myself, party of one. But it's so fragmented, and it's going to go through this sophistication journey of standardizing formats, ad tech APIs, and we're nowhere near that yet.
No.
That's great. But Stefan actually
It's
said
happening here, actually.
Stefan actually said
The formats we have, so we can...
The ones you have,
yeah.
great.
a question for you, Stefan, actually.
Yeah.
Because you said something that was actually quite interesting. You think that it won't be just marketplaces. You think that the publishers can actually play in this as well. So we talked about this during the week, right? The Guardian, the Telegraph, they have brilliant brands, but they're not actively involved in this space because they haven't got the infrastructure. Surely that's an opportunity for those ordinary publishers to get involved in this commerce media space as well.
Definitely. I think publishers now, they need to embrace e-commerce, commerce in more ways than just contextualizing some articles that's about bananas or whatever it's relevant for a brand you want to promote. So they need to integrate and find technology that can enable for a shopping experience as well, because obviously they're losing the ad game to the big platforms. Even though brands say we want to invest more into the Guardian, they spend more on Facebook either way. So they're losing that game. So then they need to find ways to use all that traffic for good or for financial reasons, and then the Guardian or whoever big site that is mainstream media, basically verticalized media is quite good at creating products because they're small, nimble, and opportunistic. Mainstream, they've had the luxury of having a lot of traffic and just serving ads constantly, like a wallpapers or whatever, and then you'll meet, ends will meet. But now with shopping or e-commerce, retail media emerging as well, that's another threat for mainstream media because that's very valuable for brands, and then suddenly they're losing a bit more of the ad dollar pie. So I think what publishers can do now, which is we're in a very, very early phase, is build out e-commerce strategies and help brands sell goods on their sites in a slick new way we haven't seen yet. And it's
they
a
have
very
the content.
Affiliates.
Yeah, I was thinking about affiliates. It's kind of but it's kind of different level, isn't it? Like you're talking about
the Guardian can integrate with or find enable for PayPal or Google Pay, Apple Pay, or whatever Pay on their site and actually start delivering an Amazon experience on their site compared to like driving clicks, for example.
I think this is where the optimization thing comes into play. Is like if you have a really good review on the Guardian about a particular product, you can buy across that. Like and having, I suppose this is where ad tech needs to kind of evolve. Is like how do you integrate not just the ad execution, but the integration into the back-end payment system, which is not affiliates is just basically click and go on to a third-party site and you get 10% of the sale, right? And it's a horrible user experience, right? You're being sent to some random fucking Israeli affiliate site that nobody wants near at all. And then you have to wait like 60, 70 days for a payment that might never come. And then they might tell, well, we'll pay you in Dogecoin.
It's not branding.
So, yeah, exactly. But
Well, Instagram is fancier affiliate shopping.
But you and I geeked out a little bit about that in preparation for these for this panel, right? People think that the experience stops at point of sale, and then you'll get your product at some point in time. It's not like that. I think there's for me the most interesting part of commerce today begins at that point in time. You know, when you start thinking about the fulfillment and logistics part of the equation. Because regardless of whether the checkout lives on your own website or on Amazon or as it's happening now with social platforms on an Instagram or a TikTok, you name it. At the end of the day, all of those channels will lead to, ideally, right, fulfillment and logistics that is centralized, so you know how many products you have in stock, so you're selling the right things, and you're actually sending it to customers within the brand promise. And that part has been completely ignored by a lot of the, dare I say, more media-orientated execution that I'm seeing in market. And it is absolutely key if you are going to make the most of those budgets, because if you are pumping pounds, dollars, euros, whatever, behind products that aren't in stock, that can be delivered within that brand promise, guess what? It's actually detrimental to the brand building piece, and people are going to go shop for a different product and a different brand elsewhere.
that's not an ad tech issue, though, is it?
I think it's 100% an ad tech issue.
Well, if you're talking about fulfillment, that's
A
that's
technology issue.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. But that's obviously, I suppose that's key to what Stefan's saying, is that you can't just stop at the ad. You have to have the whole, and that's the thing about affiliates, is like delivery, it's passed on to somebody else. Whereas if you're investing in something that's from a publisher point of view, you have to go all in, right? You just, to your point, you just can't just serve an ad, sell it, and then have a shit experience. It hasn't arrived at your house, or it's been delivered to the town down the road, or you just never see the product.
You need to connect to the super apps that has consumer trust, basically, and that's what's happening in very, like, especially in Europe. You have probably 50 different banks issuing 50 different apps, which the consumer actually trusts. So, like in Norway, you have one which no one has heard about, but 90% of the population uses that app over 18 to pay bills or to transfer cash. And now we're seeing the opportunity to use that app in advertising. And also, I would say a dark horse. We talk a lot about identity in ad tech and Unified 2.0 and all that stuff. PayPal has a natural relationship with the consumer. It's a dark horse in terms of the online ad infrastructure if you're able to enable it across programmatic publishers and so on. So it's insane amount of opportunities now with commerce and these apps and payment providers and so on to kind of connect the dots we've been yapping about for 10 years.
That's
Sorry,
still
Casper.
fragmented, so that's a payment layer.
Yeah.
And then you have distributors for delivery on the back end. Like Rappi and Latam, they're a super app, but they're now starting to have drivers, so they've like bundled Deliveroo into it. And I think you need both.
Yeah, definitely.
Otherwise, you've lost control of your experience.
Definitely.
Are you going to hire drivers, Babs? Is Pragmatic going to have a fleet of drivers who deliver my electronics to my home?
I was only laughing earlier just because if we're going to talk about sort of melding different experiences into the tech world, I came across a product that I don't think anyone here is old enough to remember, even though some of us have been around for a while. But it's called QCAT. It was an American product. I don't know if anyone's familiar with it. But it melded in publishers who were looking to do this, but in the late 1900s, so 2000 basically. They would send you a free physical product, which was a scanner, that would correspond to a barcode that they had listed on their ads in a printed ad on the newspaper, which then plugged into a laptop or a computer that you could then scan. You could then scan the ad, which would take you directly to a shopping page to buy that product and then be delivered in real life. And I thought this was, this is amazing. They were trying this in 2000. Absolutely failed. As an audience, as a user base, no one was ready for this. We just weren't in a position where that experience was how we sort of interacted with online shopping or e-commerce in that way. And I think, this idea of building an ecosystem within the e-commerce media, I think we're now at that point. We have retailers with the data. We have the infrastructure with partners like, with SSPs and partners like Kavai. We have the real estate that the publishers bring, or these retailers as publishers bring, and we have the users who are in a point now where they are willing to engage with this sort of advertising. As users, no one wants to feel like your data is the currency in the transaction. But ultimately, you do want to feel like you're getting some value from that interaction. You want to feel that there is a reason why this brand is messaging you. There is a reason why this product is being displayed to you. And I think we're at the cusp of this step change in the way retailers think about how they message and how buyers start to interact with these user bases.
Great. We've got all the pieces we would need to put together. The thing about the merchants actually being sort of activating the ads and activating the media on their own sites is that they do have the infrastructure, they do have the logistics piece. And I suppose publishers probably could end up working with those merchants to help deliver or something. So how big do you reckon?
There's tech that does that.
Is there? Is it ad tech?
Yeah.
Oh, very good.
Add to cart, buy now technology that, like Meredith in the US has that as like a core part of their ad offering now, which is all of the places that your product is sold built into the ad.
We have one too.
There you go.
Proprietary.
So the ladies will be available later to talk about their technology. I think we've got like 3 minutes left, but I want to talk about just go back to the fragmentation piece because it is a headache, right? Is that going to be a big problem for you guys with all of these multiple marketplaces globally, or is that the value of the agency trying to figure this stuff out for the brands?
I think there's going to be global players for which you can develop best practice that is applicable across the globe. Amazon is a great example of that. To the extent that Mercado Libre continues to expand in Latin America, that's a similar case there. Then you're going to have, in a way, it's similar to the relationship that you saw in media, where you have your big global players and then you have your local news, if I may put it that way. There are going to be some local retailers, and it depends on the value that they bring to customers, how they enter that priority stage, until we get to a point where some of these processes can be aggregated and automated much more end-to-end. I think that's where the opportunity lies today, right? Almost in creating that meta layer that helps you understand for a particular category, for a particular market, which are the partners that deliver the most value for your investment. We're not currently there. And I do think it has to be connected to the logistics and fulfillment part of the equation, because we've had enough of advertising just delivering, impressions to the page without actually turning into sales. And I think that's where we start talking about marketing effectiveness much more holistically, where I think retail media can actually take a leadership stand vis-a-vis other types of media into the next few years.
I'll chime with you in terms of...
It's going to keep us all employed for a little while.
I actually think it's great.
Which is good.
Yeah.
And
the fragmentation is a headache for you, but the fragmentation is great for the guys because they can put it all together,
I would say gaining visibility as a brand of what you're actually investing in and getting value from retailers is so important. I don't think that anybody has true single view on what they're getting, whether that's data, whether that's performance metrics or media formats on retail.com. I think at first we need to understand what currently exists before we start layering technology and new organizations on top of it to try and fix the problem.
I feel this is like a beautiful coming together of the mad tech middleware and the service layer.
Yeah.
And thank you for taking the time to talk about this 100 billion plus opportunity for all of us. So,
Huge.
round of applause, please, for a fantastic panel.